Hi, everyone. We are back with part two of our inspirational episode of Vonti Talks with Filmmakers podcast, featuring an Oscar winning producer for Hacksaw Ridge, Steve Longi of Longitude Entertainment in Los Angeles, California. We'd really appreciate your support, so give us a like, subscribe on your social channel. Welcome back to Conversations with Filmmakers. As mentioned, Steve is here from Longitude Entertainment. But, Steve, I want to dive into something else as well, which is how did you get into producing? And what does that look like for you, in your world? Because you mentioned like working at the film studios or everything like that, you still had to go out there and chase it. So, how did you transition from that intern, all the way into getting into producing? What made
Yeah.
you attract to that?
Yeah, I eventually I figured out that that was the track for me. So I think that was an important, you know, turning point, right? Because, again, getting specific about what the goal is. So when I realized, okay, this is the track for me,
Mhm.
um, I started to learn more about that. And there's actually two tracks to take. There's probably more, but I'm going to just
Mhm.
break it down simply into two tracks. So there's the
Okay.
production track. So if you're like an executive producer, line producer, a lot of times the line producer, which is the guy that is the physical producer on set. So he's the nuts and bolts guy. So
Mhm.
he's the guy that orders the trailers. He's the guy that, makes sure he runs the entire set. So all the physical labor on the set is being run through the line producer,
Mhm.
and he's making sure that all the permits, everything is locked down. So he oversees the entire physical production. So he's not typically, and I'm generalizing a little bit, but typically that guy isn't creative. He's more nuts and bolts
Mhm.
line producer. Okay. And that
Yeah,
guy,
that you ain't going over the budget.
yeah, so he's more in tune with the budget. Now, producers these days probably are more in tune with budgets. It depends what kinds of, films you're making. Back in the day, studios were overseeing that more. You used to have to actually sign off on the budget as a producer, basically stating you were going to be responsible for it. These
What?
days, well, yeah, because you you were responsible for it, because
Mhm.
I think back like in the 70s, maybe in the early 80s, producers maybe were even held with a higher sense of regard because there were fewer of them. The business was just very, very different. So producers were more important at that period of time because there were less people. They were doing probably more of the work. Some of those guys were actually creative and probably, line producer types, but
Mhm.
they wielded a lot of power. These days, things have been kind of diluted. So the
Mhm.
producers, on just about every film you see now, there are multiple producers. Okay,
Yes.
so the power's sort of been diluted a bit.
Mhm.
So the creative producer probably has, I mean, it depends. This is, again, I'm just generalizing, but when
Yes.
you're making the movie, the most important guy is the guy that's running the money right every day. That's the guy
Yes.
that's like the most important. So he's going to trump everything else, creative, whatever it is. Everybody's looking to him to like, hey, you got to make sure this thing comes in under budget. And he's the guy on set that's going to have probably the best handle on where cash is flowing in and out.
Yes.
So, like when you make a film, you have cash flow reports. There's all this paperwork that gets generated, but there's
Mhm.
only so much one producer can actually do or oversee.
Yes.
So there's tons of information flowing over the transom, but the creative producers are going to be more focused, and this is where I'm going to get into the two tracks. So on the
Yes.
creative side, okay, that's more what they call development. So that's more like reading screenplays, working in an office every day, finding directors to attach to screenplays,
Mhm.
finding actors to attach to projects, finding studios and buyers to sell and option screenplays to. That's the
Mhm.
creative side of it. On the line producer, production, everyday set side, there's becoming like a production assistant on a film that's already in production.
Mm-hmm.
There's like production coordinator who works like under the line producer and is also responsible for coordinating the various departments and things on a set.
Yes.
So there's that track, right? And those are two different tracks because, like I say, when it comes down to it, the producer is usually more creative, and the line producers more nuts and bolts, everyday business, of the making of the film. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
those are the two tracks. So the way I started, which I think was the question you asked me, um,
Steve is
I
smart.
started working in a production office where I was reading scripts and I was and lists. Okay, so like making lists is the key to creative to development. That's what I saw early on. Like I was
Yeah.
like, wait, I don't understand. All I see is us making lists every day. I don't get it, right? Like I couldn't. It was hard to wrap my like. Am I learning how to be a producer here? Because all we're doing is making lists, and that's a huge part of actually life. List making, right? Like that's something that you really should like be good at.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have my to-do list every day and I have my list of what I've done every day. So
Yeah.
I'm running two lists minimum every day. But when you work as a creative producer in development, you're making lists. So for example, you read a great script. Now you're thinking, where can I sell this script? So you're making a list of potential buyers. So that could be
Uh-huh.
studios, streamers, it could be other producers who maybe have acts who are like higher level producers, right? That you may need to access talent. Just depends on where you are and where the project's at and what it requires.
Absolutely.
I might be making lists of directors who might be right for this, right? And so the lists then become the actionable work that a creative producer does to start packaging, what we call packaging screenplays. And that's what then attracts the financing. So let me just dispel because there's a huge confusion about this, I think.
Okay.
Financing doesn't, people are like, oh, it's chicken and the egg the way financing comes about. It's really not. It's really
Okay.
not. Financing comes about because that financing is either attracted to a business proposition, which is one way to approach making a movie, or a
Mm-hmm.
financial or a creative proposition, which is another way, or a creative and business proposition combined together, and an individual. Okay, so I think that investors and people invest in individuals. So, for example, when we would go to have meetings at the studio to try to sell a screenplay,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, like let's say like I actually remember there was one, and this is like people won't even believe this, but it was a comedy. The screenplay was a comedy, and we went into the meeting, and the executive literally looked at us and said, "I don't know if it's funny, but I'm trusting you guys." And he's buying a screenplay. He couldn't even swear that was funny. Maybe some people that he gave it to,
Yeah.
various other creative executives at the studio read it and said, "Yeah, it's funny." But he actually didn't know. So he would, but he was taking, he was making that investment in us as producers, right? And probably in the concept of the screenplay because that's very important,
Yes.
as well.
So he
But
was pretty much, Steve, he was letting the professionals lead and not trying fake it till you make it, like you have
yeah,
mentioned.
which is nice
Right?
actually. Yeah,
It's nice.
which is really cool. Yeah, no, and that all that part of it's great. But I think I think people think that these people know more than they do or anybody, and the truth is they don't always. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
not, I think people at these studios and streamers are very, very smart. Don't I'm not, I don't put down executives ever because I
Yeah.
am one and I understand the challenge of that, and I've met some very, very talented smart executives. Now not all of them, and
Yeah.
and they don't always give great notes, but sometimes they do give really great notes and can be really helpful. So you can't generalize about that either. But I think it's interesting for people to know that this is not like, sorry, where's my crew? I need my crew to
messing
adjust
around
the
again.
lighting because I'm helpless without them.
Leave it alone.
I think it's helpful. Okay.
Conversations with filmmakers. We will be right back after a word from our sponsors. Thank you. And now, a word from one of our sponsors. After starting my podcast, I needed to hire the pros to market the content. Are you looking for digital success? Look no further. World Boss HQ is your strategic partner. Their experts turn your vision into a digital masterpiece. From stunning websites to powerful marketing, they've got you covered. Startups or established businesses, they are your one-stop solution. Visit worldbosshq.com. That is WORLDBOSSHQ.com, and unleash your potential today. World Boss HQ Digital Marketing. Your online empire awaits. We are excited to bring you this world-exclusive teaser from Bad Rabbit Pictures and Movie Pods. They are presenting Age of Prophecy, a sci-fi fantasy podcast done in the style of the radio dramas of yesteryear. Coming soon to all streaming platforms. Visit www.moviepods.com or www.thenukechronicles.com for all the release dates. You won't want to miss this one. Your myths were born from our history. Let's check it out.
Life. A vile, messy sequence of events before we die. All designed for something beyond us. It has to be. Or else, what's the point? You don't know me, but I know you. I am responsible for your triumphs and miseries. I am Zira and Nilzor, and to truly understand your own story, you must know mine. Your myths were born from my history.
Hi there, and welcome back to Conversations with Filmmakers podcast. Hi, you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. We're back with Conversations with Filmmakers, and we are here with Steve Longi, the head of Longitude Entertainment. Is that feedback?
I don't know. I heard something,
I heard something too.
but I'm not near any devices.
Listen, let's just
Okay.
leave it be one more time. So, sorry, Jacob Dalen, my editor. Is that me or you?
It's not me.
It's not you. Okay. All right. So we're coming back. So welcome back, guys. Conversations with Filmmakers. We have Steve Longi here from Longitude Entertainment, and we were getting into a deeper dive into the producer side of things.
Yeah. So just to pick up on my last point, because I was talking about the studio executive who we were making a deal with on a comedy, and he literally said to us, "I don't know if it's funny, but I'm trusting you guys." And I think the important point there is that a lot of times, when it comes to attracting financing, I think that's what sort of led me down this road. Investors, financiers, studio executives, they're investing in the people a lot of times, or they're investing in the concept. That's an important one in Hollywood. Okay. But what I think is important for people to just keep in mind is this isn't like a perfect thing, right?
Yeah.
It's not like those people know so much and you should be, you know, afraid of them or hesitant with them, or if you have a great idea, you got to go out there with all the passion, and you got to sell it. You got to sell to them and show them that it's a great idea, because again, they're going to put that faith in you, perhaps, to ultimately get on board or finance your project or want to buy your screenplay, right? So I think it's just always really helpful for people to know what's going on behind the scenes, because behind the scenes, it's a train wreck like everything else in life. It's not a perfect world. People
It's
don't
not
always
a
say the
perfect.
perfect thing. My lighting's not always perfect, right? I mean, if you can hear what I'm saying, it doesn't matter what my lighting looks like in this interview. Okay. I know it's been dark. I know it's dark at times, but
Move
the
back.
message is light.
Yes, I love that though. Steve, I love that though, because it is honest if you think about it, right? You're talking about multiple studios, production companies, like TV channels. It's like it's a whole slew of things, and you're trying to bring your stuff up to that level of like, hey, you guys, we want to do this project. So would you mind if we pivot to what was that strategy per se, if you can remember? And I know it was some time ago, for Hacksaw Ridge when you guys were approaching people about that project.
Yeah, well, so I was actually on the set of my first film when that story was presented to me.
Wow.
And yeah, and it took many, many years to finally get that film made, which people are surprised because when they hear the story, such a great story. I'm
Yeah.
super proud of the movie. Um, Again, there were a lot of people involved in making it into the success that it was.
Hmm.
Um, but I heard it for the first time when I was on the set of my film. Um, my second unit director, a very talented gentleman named Joel Kramer, who's done lots of work with Jim Cameron. He had heard about the story and told me this incredible, incredible tale of a gentleman in World War II who wanted to serve his country and was a Seventh Day Adventist, did not want to bear arms, wouldn't even touch a gun, but enlisted, was put into a rifle company somehow by mistake,
Wow.
was teased relentlessly, beaten up. They tried to kick him out. He just kept coming back for more. Ultimately, he became a medic. For people who haven't seen the movie, he becomes a medic,
Mhm.
and he goes into World War II without a gun. And over the course of one day, winds up saving the lives of 75 to 100 men and wins the Congressional Medal of Honor. An incredible story, right? So this is a
Absolutely.
pacifist in World War II, winds up winning the Congressional Medal of Honor. When I heard this story, I was blown away by it. I just couldn't believe it. It was a story I really wanted to tell. And just going back to what I was saying earlier about, you know, originally why I got into the film business, wanting to uplift and wanting to bring something positive. This was the perfect movie for me to make because it was entertaining, it was incredibly fascinating, and I wanted to know how did he do it?
Yeah.
It had such a hook to it where I really felt like the level of the storytelling here was really a high bar, and people would really be drawn into it for that reason. And so and I felt like directorially the movie could be amazing, and the actor who portrays Desmond Doss, and certainly all these, the movie was nominated for 6 Academy Awards. I'm very proud to
Wow.
say. So but yeah, but it took many, many, many years to actually, realize it. And I think that's another good lesson, right? Because I didn't give
Yes.
up. I could have easily given up. The team who worked on this film for so many years, dedicated to this film for so many years, could have easily given up, but we didn't. And ultimately the film was made, and best possible outcome, being nominated for Best Picture and various other awards. So maybe it had to take the amount of time, and maybe it had to happen in the way that it happened for it to happen the way it happened, right?
Yes.
So I don't really look back on those things too much, but but trying to make it happen was very challenging, and it wasn't easy. And no, people didn't immediately like take to it. It took a few times before people honestly got on board, and then finally decided after many years to actually
Yes.
make the film. So, that again, I think that goes back to what I was saying before about, people knowing so much behind the scenes. It's not like people saw this and said, "Oh yeah, that's Academy Award winning." I mean, I felt that, and
Yes.
the team felt that certainly, but it was still something, that it was still a boulder. This is what we say in the movie business, that we had to push uphill, right?
Yes.
It's like Sisyphus, the Greek legend of Sisyphus. But I think this goes back to what I'm saying. It's that, you have to create it. If you wait for it to come to you, if you wait for somebody to hand it to you, it's probably not happening. And you
Yes.
probably know better anyway. So, you want to go out there with no fear, and you want to go out there not thinking that you're going to be ridiculed. Fear of being ridiculed is a real fear,
And it stops a
but
lot of people. Yes.
it stops a lot of people. But if you notice, the most successful people on the planet have been ridiculed like endlessly,
Yes.
either early in their life, later in their life, or all through their life.
Yeah, exactly.
It,
Steve, it's such a
it's a
pivotal thing.
marker of successful people, you see, because why is it a marker of successful people? Because they have no fear of being ridiculed. Sometimes the craziest ideas turn out to be the best ideas, but because the person that's presenting them may be so visionary or so ahead of their time, and can see it, just like I feel like I saw, and producers around me saw that Hacksaw Ridge could be this huge, Academy Award winning film.
Yes.
You have to have the vision for that. Not everybody has that vision. It's just, that's the reality in life. In fact, many people do not have that vision, and a big struggle in the business is communicating your vision. And the
Yes.
way to do that, and these days people use pitch decks. There's, back in my day, like, when I first started, people just wanted a screenplay. They don't want pictures. They don't want nothing
Yes.
fancy, nothing fancy. But these days, people they want to see that you've thought it all through, that you have actors that have thought about being in it, and
Yeah,
director.
the film comps, how did they do at the box office?
Yeah, you
Yeah,
have
all
to
of that
like
stuff. Yeah.
build, you have to make it come alive for
Mhm.
people, because they don't have the vision to make it come alive themselves. So what you see so clearly, and this is the frustration for creatives, it's like we see it so clearly, and then when you go out into the marketplace, or to people, studios, whatever, collaborators, whomever that may be, they may not see it. So you may have to utilize like a pitch deck nowadays in order to get them to really, really be able to wrap their heads around it. And I think pitch decks
Mhm.
are a good tool to utilize.
Absolutely. And I also think like know your wins and losses as well, right? There are people that are very firm, like me as a screenwriter, right? I'm not as firm. I'm more flexible when it comes to certain things, but there's people that do not want you to change one page on their script, right? They feel
Well,
like
yeah,
the perfect script. I'm not compromising on that or whatever the
yeah.
case may be. And for me, it's more about, is the plot, the subplot, and the core message of the story still there? And then we can
Yeah.
negotiate the other things, right? But there's some people that they're not trying to hear it, not even one sentence. And that can
Those people,
sometimes take it slow.
we call those people playwrights, because playwright, that is something in the world of playwriting that is absolutely accepted, believe it
Mhm.
or not. But in the film world, totally unacceptable, because what if I haven't stressed this enough, it's a collaborative medium in
Yes.
all aspects. So, you know, you don't want to make a film by committee either, at least from I mean, it is a committee to some degree, but thematically, tonally, there are certain things that need to be very consistent, okay,
Yes.
and have to be part of the vision all the way through. Okay. And then there are other things that can be done, collectively.
Hmm.
And, listen, not all writers feel like their work, you know, deserves that. Okay. But, the business of making movies, that's something you're going to have to get comfortable with, I would say,
Yes.
regardless of how you feel about it, you're probably going to have to get comfortable with it because yeah, writers are looked at. I don't look at writers this way at all because writers really are my bread and butter and the core of what I do as a
Thank you,
producer.
Steve, for
Yeah,
saying it.
yeah, and there are many producers, yeah, who believe that and follow that because that absolutely is a real thing. Um, we do respect writers and we do need writers, and we use writers throughout the whole process. Writers are on the set of every movie I've ever made. So people, again, I don't think people understand, right, the importance of that. It's downplayed, but what happens is the way it like the optics on it, I guess, to use that word. Um, you might see two or three writers on a movie. It's the same thing with producers. You see like 20 of them on a movie. So
Hmm.
it dilutes the profession. It does to some degree, but I'm here to say no, those people are contributing they're making very important contributions, but there are other people coming in and adding to it,
Yes.
because that is the nature of what we do.
Yes.
It's just the nature of what we do.
And I
So
think something, Steve, important to say as well is, to me, from what I know of movie making, it's it's not as impersonal as maybe a corporate business, but it is a business, right? So when you're building a business, a film is like a business. Like they
yeah,
literally will create an LLC and the name and brand it. All of the employees have to be moving as one, from the creative side to the financiers to all of that stuff. So when
hmm
you understand that and you're all aligned on the perfect storm, that's when you're going to create, what is it? Movie magic?
movie magic, yeah.
Movie
Well,
magic, Steve. Yes.
here's the thing. I think sometimes when you have financial constraints, that can spur creativity. So because there's going to be creative decisions, there's going to be business decisions, and there's going to be business decisions that affect creative and creative decisions that affect the business, right? It's good, like,
Mhm.
oh, I want to blow up this huge building, and they're going to say, whoa, that's going to cost $1 million. So, we got to figure out another. We either got to rewrite that scene or use stock footage, right? Or like, how are you going to do that? So you've got to weigh, it's art and commerce, as they say. It's the collision of our art and commerce. And
I love
so,
that.
a really good producer is going to try to figure out, like what I'm trying to do in life too, is take um is to see the opportunities in the challenges. So if someone says we don't have enough money to do that, and I've been in
Absolutely.
meetings, right, meeting with the studio, and they're like, we can't afford to do that. So you've got to rewrite that. But what winds up happening is we rewrite it into something better than what it was that
I love
doesn't
that.
cost a lot of money, right? And that's a pro who does that. If you dig in and you're like, I'm not changing it, it's got to be. No, that's not going to be a good way to success.
Hmm.
Yes, you should be, but again, there's a duality to this for creatives, because creatives should believe in what they're doing and should fight for what they feel is right, but
Yes.
also have the flexibility to break out of it and come up with something better.
Hmm.
So that's not easy to do.
It's
and
not.
and sometimes it takes your career to, because your career is a process. So you may not be great at that today, but you're gonna work. This process is gonna help you become really good at that, and that makes you a good collaborator. Because again, people don't want people who are wishy-washy. They want people who feel strongly,
Yes.
but they also don't want people that feel so strongly that they're intractable and
Yes.
difficult, right? So there's a sweet spot there. And
It's a sweet spot of learning, I would say. And I think,
absolutely.
I think it's that a lot of times they fail to again trust the professionals, trust the process, and understand again that collaboration. Now, an exciting message from our sponsors. When I decided to launch this podcast, I had the tools to find talent and market the show, but needed a skilled editor to bring it all to life. That's when I turned to Jacob Daly at redhawk.uk. His collaborative approach and swift revisions transformed my vision into reality. redhawk.uk, your one-stop solution for creative content services. Reach out to them. Now, a word from another of our supporting sponsors, that is Realm IQ, a new AI consultancy started by film marketing veteran Kurt Doty, who has built an international team of AI mentors to help AI change management for your business. Go to www.curtdoty.co/Realm IQ. Smart people for smart adoption, creating smart worlds. Realm IQ. Book your AI workshop today. Adopt or perish. Hi there, and welcome back to Conversations with Filmmakers podcast. I definitely would love to have you back because I feel like this discussion could go like 3 more hours.
Yeah, okay, okay. We
So
can do that.
Yeah, that is
Yeah,
really
we'll do
amazing.
that.
There's so
We'll do
much
that.
of a deeper dive because again, a lot of people, there's a misinformed notion of what producers do, and you breaking
Yes.
it down on all the different levels and the things that you look for. I would even say to that, as a screenwriter, even when you're looking to approach a producer, know your genre and know which side of the industry you're trying to be on. If you go and find an independent producer, but then tell them you want to spend 100 million on an action adventure film, that's not the person you need to be going to, right?
Yeah, no, no,
Right?
no.
Because they're
$100 million is a lot of money. I sometimes, I
I
talk to a
don't
lot
think
of
people
writers.
understand.
They throw these numbers out, and I'm just like, have you even seen, $500,000? Like, I mean,
Exactly.
that's a lot of money. So yeah,
And everybody wants to feel like their budget is that big, right? But it's like, no, did you actually go and do an actual budget based on the extras, your scenes, your this, that? It's like a long laundry list, right? But what I'm saying is know the audience that you're approaching. If you're saying
yeah,
like, hey, I got an independent rom-com,
right.
and I got 3 locations, I think we can do it for X amount of dollars versus now you're going to independent filmmaker or independent producer and say, I want to make the next Mission Impossible, right?
Yeah, you got to know your world.
Know your world. Exactly,
Yeah.
right?
Well, like we made, for example, so we made Hacksaw Ridge. It was $50 million. That is like one of the most expensive independent films like ever made. $50
Wow.
million is a lot. Yeah. So, any film that's that expensive is usually
Mhm.
got a studio or streamer who has like a distribution uh, ability,
Yes.
and marketing dollars, publicity and advertising. That's the only
Yep.
time you take that level of risk. So yeah, people throw these numbers out. It's crazy. But okay, so I'll say this. So yes, we can come on, and when I come back, there'll be more things going on, right? So we'll have more things to talk about,
Oh, of course.
for sure. Because also right now is a little bit of a we're trying to sort of retrench. We're retrenching. We're getting going again, beyond these strikes, beyond COVID, and all of that now is in the rear view. So,
Yes.
and the actor strike is still on, unfortunately. But
Listen,
that's
do
going to
not
end soon.
age this episode. Listen, you guys, by
Oh,
the
sorry.
time this episode airs, all of that is going to be behind us. And Steve is going to be telling us about his newest project, right?
That's right. But in the meantime, so people can connect with me on LinkedIn. Okay, so Steve Longi, Longi
Absolutely.
on LinkedIn. They can go to my website, longitudeentertainment.com, all spelled out, longitudeentertainment.com.
Let me get that
Where
for you guys.
Yep.
Longi.
Yep. And on the website, there are a number of resources for writers. And my webinar is great, so you can listen to that. So 40 minutes of me packing that in, with like all the knowledge I've gained over the last, 30 years or so.
Amazing.
So you can do that, and then like and follow all my media, and yeah, absolutely, I'll come back.
Absolutely. All right. But before we wrap up, guys, because we're here conversations with filmmakers, Steve Longi of Longitude Entertainment. Steve, I wanted to ask you one more question though, that you could, if you could possibly share with us. You
Sure.
know, okay, two more questions. Because I always gotta ask this. Two more questions. So what is something that you're working on that you want people to be on the lookout for, if you're able to say that? I know there's always like NDAs and no, honestly, I can't talk about that project or whatever, but is there something upcoming that you want the public to definitely know?
Yeah, I mean, listen, just between you and I, um,
We're
you
recording,
know,
it can't be between us.
oh damn, oh well. Uh,
Tell me after this ends, okay?
listen, you're asking a producer, do you want to talk about your projects? Oh yeah, we love to publicize.
Well,
Yeah, my next film is an alien abduction story. It's based on a true story of Betty and Barney Hill. They were an interracial couple in the early 1960s, and they were on their way home from a vacation. Something happened to them on the way. They lost a couple hours of time. Their back of their car trunk was scuffed, just weird stuff. They couldn't eat or sleep for a year. So a doctor shows up who's pioneering the science of hypnotherapy, and he puts them under hypnosis and regresses them, and they both tell the most incredible story about being brought aboard an alien spacecraft and having horrific experiments done on them. And
wow.
yeah, and anyway, that's what did it really happen? I don't know. Is it true? I don't know. Was she
Listen,
given a star map that they then matched to a real star map at Caltech? Maybe they did. Uh-oh, chills
wow.
up and down my spine.
Yeah.
Uh,
Something to be passionate about as you develop the
I'm
project.
super passionate about aliens. So
Me too, though. No,
yeah,
but I
yeah.
think,
So
Steve,
yeah,
that's some really great insight.
yeah. So
And I
that's
think
my next film.
I'm going to applaud you on that. Let me tell you guys something that is freaking exciting, because that is just around my thing. It's almost like a sci-fi mixed with a drama, mixed with a thriller. It's like a lot of different genres that is
See,
happening
you
with
see
that.
the vision, don't you?
Absolutely. Let me tell you, when I tell you I'm a movie watcher and maker or whatever, it's like creating content is just, you got to think outside the box and what's a unique story. And I used to teach as well. You know, I used to teach screenwriting, and I used to tell them, listen, if you want to make the next Annabelle, it better be better than that. If you want to make a film about a doll, it don't need to be Annabelle. It doesn't need to be Chucky. It doesn't need to be any of that. It has to have something that is unique to that story in order to draw them in, or else you're just making the same film over and over again. What is
Yeah,
the twist? You know?
yeah,
And what you just said is something that is different, is unique, is like mixed with poltergeist meets all kinds of stuff. You know what I mean? So I love that. But
thank
one
you.
more question
Okay,
before you go.
this is the martini. Oh, that was the
That
martini. This
was
is
the
the
martini.
final.
This is the
Okay.
final. This is like a virtual hug. If you had it to do all over again, would you?
If I had to do it all over again, would I? Absolutely. I do. I can just leave it all behind right now and start doing something else. And I would never do that. And
That,
I'd never do that. I promise you, I would never do that. So I would definitely do it all over again.
I
Yeah, I don't
love
even,
that.
yeah, there's not even a
He's like, why
doubt,
would you even ask that?
not
I'm
even
still in it.
not even a scintilla of doubt about that one. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it's make movies or die trying. That's our motto over here.
And I love that, because you've already
Okay.
made them. You've already made them. So there is no die trying anything. You've already made them. You've already been very successful, you know, in the industry, as far as like someone that people can respect and look up to, not just for like the Hacksaw Ridge, but all of the lessons that you've been teaching here. Because there's
Thank you.
some young kid or adult or anybody that wants to get into what you're doing, and you've broken it down in enough pieces that they can understand what that would look like and what kind of ethics you would need, you know what I mean, how hard you would need to work, all of that, Steve. So that's why, again, this is why I've created this podcast, because people need to know, we need the spotlight, instead of having people out here that feel like they can never work anywhere or do anything, or those student loans are in freaking vain, right?
They're not. They're not.
No.
No, you gotta listen. You gotta go out in the world. I mean, there was no, honestly, for me, I failed I mean, the reason why I had to attend community colleges and the reason why I didn't take the college route, it really wasn't a big choice. There weren't a lot of colleges who wanted me. So, I failed out of high school. It was a disaster, and it wasn't
Yeah.
because I wasn't a smart kid, I just wasn't applying myself. I didn't find anything interesting enough in the schoolwork, that has me as passionate as filmmaking. So, but if I can do it, growing up in little small town in New Jersey and not knowing anybody in the movie business, and like I literally just threw all my stuff in my car and headed west. And yeah, it took
I
me
love
some
that.
time to figure out. But if I can do it, yes, you can do it. And the key is just to not give up. Just go out there with passion, not give up. Combine those two things. You will find success and happiness.
And that is it. A word from Steve Longi from Longitude Entertainment. Let me tell you guys, watch out for this fella. Steve, I want to thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it as always. And yes, I will be dragging you back here. So please answer my phone call, okay?
Okay, will do, Vonti. You take care now.
Thank you. Bye, Steve. You've just tuned into an episode of Conversations with Filmmakers podcast. We'd like to thank our guests for joining us and sharing their knowledge. This has been a production of Vonti Pictures, hosted by me, Vonti McRae, a screenwriter and producer. We'd also like to thank Bad Rabbit Pictures for the animated content and creator of upcoming podcast Age of Prophecy, along with our sponsor, redhawk.uk, with all episodes being edited by Jacob Daly, director, producer, and a man of many talents. Come back next week as this saga continues for the Conversations with Filmmakers podcast.